The time is 7:03, and I will call this regular meeting of the Dickinson City Council to order. Item 1, call to order and certification of quorum.
Member Simpson,
Here.
Councilwoman Simpson, Councilmember Wilson, Mayor Skipworth,
Here.
Councilmember Brantley, here. Councilmember Decker, here. Councilmember Linton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 2, the invocation. Councilman Simpson. Councilman Brantley will lead us in the invocation this evening.
Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for bringing us here. We thank you for all of our blessings. We pray that you would guide over us. God, we pray that you would give us knowledge and wisdom to do the work of your city. It's in your Son, Jesus' name we pray and for his sake. Amen.
Amen.
And if you please join Councilwoman Simpson for the pledges.
The Texas flag.
Thank you. This will move us on to item 4, proclamations and awards. So first up are the Shine Awards for employees and department heads.
Good evening, everybody. It's a wonderful evening, and it's great attendance tonight to celebrate quite a few people, employees and interns who are employees as well for the summer. But first, I wanted to take a moment and really highlight, we have some very wonderful staff members that have done some wonderful things for us this year, and really want to highlight the service that they've provided the community. And so we're going to start from front to back. So I'm going to start, let's see here. We have principles of the city that we've really instituted and the staff has really gravitated toward, and that's the SHINE principle: service, humility, integrity, nobility, and excellence. And what we're really trying to strive for with the staff is that, through service with the community as well as service to each other, we can elevate this community to a quality of life that the residents here deserve. And so we have 5 staff members who are going to receive SHINE Awards this evening, one for each of the 5 letters of SHINE. Yes, 5 letters.
Went to Louisiana.
Yeah. So first, our first recipient of a SHINE Award is for service. And this gentleman who's being highlighted has been a focal point of community service in our police department and city organization as a whole. And so it was very easy for us to work with our police department in choosing Officer Tony Valdez as our Service Award winner. Thank you so much, Officer Valdez. Come on up and receive your award.
Man, I was hoping to get Fred L. Linton, but it's no big. I don't want to waste money.
And all the rest of my supporters and people that come up here.
Still be good. I mean, yeah, I got stuff going on at work. It's the least of my concerns. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just more difficult, more stressful, and then this place. Oh yeah. I've asked. I'm trying to find double the number of fight sessions I get to go over there at MMA, like to burn off stress.
One more.
Next up in our Shine Award recipients, the next letter, H, is for humility. For people, for our staff, is really to understand that that public service is a badge of honor for everybody, that we're to uphold as high of a standard as possible. And as part of that, it should humble us that the public puts as much trust as they do in us every single day to provide the best service that we can. The recipient of the Humility Award is somebody who has really exemplified being a servant to the people that she works with. The role that she serves is very hard because oftentimes you're telling people what they cannot be doing or that they're falling short on things, but to still do so in a way that leaves dignity to the people that she's working with. And that means a lot to me that she would be able to balance those things together. So the recipient of our Humility Award goes to, and I can pronounce her last name because we're both from Louisiana, Sylvia Ardouin. Come on up. Next up in our Shine Award presentations, really want to highlight, the I in Shine being integrity, because once one of the big things you have to do to be a high-performing organization and to reach out to the community is to provide a conduit of information to build trust, and the way you do that is through transparent and open communication. Integrity is key to our relationship with our constituents. And so really the person who is highlighted for our Integrity Award is somebody who had previously served with the city and came back to the city in our finance department. And our finance department is one of the key, most instrumental departments in building trust between the city organization and the community. And this person was highlighted by several people, not just within her own department, but with other departments as well, in how she conveyed financial information and helped build a lot of the operating procedures alongside our finance director and chief financial officer, Harrison Nicholson. And so the recipient of the Integrity Award goes to Miss Sarah Clark.
Went out the front door.
Our next recipient is somebody who received multiple nominations from multiple departments. Nobility is a very important part of our SHINE principles because nobility is what sustains an organization. It's one thing to set a high bar, but it's another to maintain it and to be a paragon, a role model for others to achieve high standards. The person that has won the award this evening for nobility works in our library and has been somebody that our library director has leaned on, has been a peer to others, has worked with our interns, has also worked with other departments and also services such as Gulf Coast Transit District, and really helps lead the library alongside Julianne Lane. And the winner of our Nobility Award goes to Tanya Napier. Next up, we have the Excellence Award, because without the E, then it would just be Shin, and that would not nearly be as impressive. You know, excellence, what we're really striving for every single day is efficiency and effectiveness every single day in every department, because that's what is expected of us in our community. Our residents deserve it and should expect that from us. As we were trying to figure out who exemplified this award the most, we really landed on two people because together they provide excellent service to the staff, and by providing excellent service to staff allows us to provide excellent service to the community. And we're going to continue moving forward in that world of continuous improvement. But if we're not striving for excellence, we'll never get there. And so the two people that we have highlighted, because they're a team together and together do such great things, and they're selfless. They've done wonderful work for us. Every single day they have worked together to help us make City Hall a better place. They're out in the community working on things across the city to make it better. And so our two recipients of the Excellence Award go to Mr. Brad Anders and Mr. Felipe Castillo. last award is not a Shine Award. It's the City Manager's Example of Excellence Award, and every year highlighting someone in the department head staff who really exemplifies, kind of, encapsulating everything that we're trying to achieve as a city. In the year I've been here, we've had so many department heads who've really stepped up to the plate, have really helped really rebuild a lot of the work that we've been trying to do and get us moving forward in a direction that the residents see publicly, but also can build trust for future years. And when trying to decide on the person to win an award at this, whenever it's such a tough decision to make, we really looked at a lot of the nominations for the award. And there was one person who really, stood out, because not only does he handle his department, but every time he's asked for anything, it doesn't matter what the job description says on his annual evaluation, he'll do pretty much anything for the city necessary for us to function, and he has stepped up to the plate in ways that many other people would not or could not. And so I'm very, very pleased to announce that the City Manager's Example of Excellence Award goes to our EMS Director and Emergency Management Coordinator, co-coordinator, Derek Hunt. All right, next up we have we have 8 people here that are about to go off back to school in very various places, but they all came together at Dickinson High School. At least that's what their paperwork they turned in said. But I just want to say is, first of all, I'm very pleased to say that Dickinson ISD is producing some really outstanding kids. We ended up with 8 just wonderful people who came to work with us over the summer, and over 10 weeks have really embedded themselves with the staff. Every week tortured with city manager weekly meetings, history lessons, books, and so forth, and many, many other terrible things. But they all came through for 8 weeks, did everything that was asked of them, did great work. I think one of the most important things people need to understand is that these interns did real world work. They weren't just sitting around for the summer. They learned a lot about how city government operates. They did many of the tasks alongside our staff, understanding how local government works. So understand that this wasn't just an internship of the summer. This was hopefully an education for them and kind of what would be expected of them in a 40-hour work week and so forth. And they were a joy to have. And I know our department heads were very pleased by the end of the summer to report that they all did what they were supposed to do. So with that being said, I think we're ready to get them. I don't know if one of y'all wants to, let's see. Is it me? Okay, I want to do it. Do I want to do it? Yeah.
Can you start on the next row?
The next
Sorry,
row?
yes.
Should I start here?
Yes, start there.
Okay, thank you. Our first intern, Alyssa Duskick. and Alyssa was our administration intern. So she got to spend quite a bit of time at City Hall. And speaking of interns that did spend quite a bit of time at City Hall, we also have our communications intern, and that was Amaya Mallory. Is she here tonight? Still celebrating her. I think she has a lot of work to do. I think she's with the flag, right?
She's on color guard.
Color guard, yep. Next up was our IT intern. Spent a little bit of time and also at the library working on technology, and that is Draven Sutton.
Your son has the best shoes. All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Next up is our Bayou Animal Services intern. Didn't get to spend as much time at City Hall as our other interns, but got to spend plenty of time at the shelter, and that is Ashley Shirk. Next up, we have our GIS intern who got to do quite a bit of filing and got to play in GIS, I guess, a little bit, I'm assuming, maybe? Yes, okay. And that is Trace High.
On Trace's first day, he's working on his father.
Very important to assert dominance first. Next up, we have our library intern who not only turned in essays, but also read them to me simultaneously. So thank you for that. And that is Ray Ginthy.
There you go. All right. On 3, 1, 2, 3.
Next up, we have our planning intern who helped us quite a bit on a lot of our research for fees and so forth in the planning department, and that is Quinn Luna.
Well, hang on, y'all. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2.
Last but certainly not least is our Public Works intern who got to operate a backhoe and do some welding along the way, and that is Layla Jackson.
All right, on three. 1, 2, 3, say cheese.
Well, I just want to, if we can just take a moment, and we had our 8 interns, we had 7 recipients of Shine Awards and Example of Excellence. If you can just give them a round of applause for.
Wait, did we? There was something else.
Oh, I feel like
There was something else.
one quick thing. Theo, please don't fire us all.
I think the most important thing about Theo's leadership style in the city, we truly are a team. We truly look after one another, and he does it with such ease.
So Theo is really passionate about just getting stuff done and being motivated to do that. And he's hit the ground running. He comes out there, and so the energy, the passion, I think is the first thing that I really appreciate.
He's a man of great character, for one. Second, he's got great leadership, and he has an unconditional passion for the vision of Dickinson.
I appreciate how Theo handles all situations. He's very involved. He's direct with everybody. He truly cares about what we're doing here, and he wants the best for this community. And as a kid that grew up here in Dickinson and knowing where things were, the service that we've received for generations, the citizens of Dickinson deserve so much more and so much better service than we've received, and that's what Theo is delivering on. Customer service is his main priority, and that's what we push every day, and that's what I appreciate the most.
I think working for our citizens for over 20 years, I really appreciate the fact that Theo puts our customers first. We do also have a very diverse leadership group, and I feel that he not only leads by example, but he allows us to do things the way that works for us by not micromanaging us and letting us do what we need to do to get our jobs done.
I like that he is patient with everybody. He makes sure that he makes eye contact when he's listening to whatever it is that you're coming to his office to speak about. And I like how direct and honest he is.
I appreciate that he's not really serious. Like, he is serious, but he's serious, but he also makes things fun. And he makes it easy to comprehend, and if you don't understand, he'll say it in a way that you will.
He relies on me to make the right decision for the city. If we disagree, then at least we have a good little conversation about it, but it's very professional when we do this.
Theo has brought a breath of fresh air to leadership in general.
He leads, and he also allows you to lead. He doesn't micromanage, and he doesn't just tell you what to do, he shows you.
See a lot of positive changes happening, a lot of good positive changes, things that needed to be done for a long time, so I'm glad that I'm a part of that.
He's very open-minded, he's fun, he doesn't make us feel like we're working, even though we are.
I also like how funny he is and how he makes us laugh, and he isn't so like serious about everything, and he's not like one of those people that are like always down your neck.
First, that he totally supports his staff. He is always available to listen and to give advice when needed.
I appreciate that he is honest, always smiling and upbeat. I know, he's just a cheerful person.
So sometimes he'll linger in my doorway and announce his presence by using a laser pointer on the desk until I notice that there's something going on. So,
Every time you walk in, I always, come on in. That's his favorite line.
Probably his rants about history. There's always a lesson in them, but not always the lesson I think he anticipates.
Only in the stories.
Theo likes to make dad jokes, but they're so bad. It's so bad. And that's how I call him. But I thought it was in a bad way from like, no, we're besties or not. Thank you. I agree. That's what makes it funny. The dad jokes. Yeah, it's like he's hilarious. His face makes me laugh.
He matches his shoes to his vest.
I think it would just be his facial expression.
His look. He has a specific look when you know he's listening to you, but he also has about 10 other things going on in the back of his head. I think it's more the thing, like, I don't know, he's sort of looking side-eyed, like a, chihuahua sort of looking at you, so, yeah.
The biggest accomplishment that I think Theo has done is he's really built a team. He has brought in people who have the drive and the will to do better and to be better for the city of Dickinson.
I believe our biggest accomplishment is the streets and drainage. I mean, if you go back and look at all the work that we've done over the last 6 to 8 months with in-house work and our contractors, we've done more in 8 months than the city has in 10, 12 years. So we have many more projects planned that we will be going through, and just improving the drainage in our streets is something that's really big.
Interacting with more of the people, like in the community, I've seen that a lot since I've been here.
I've noticed there wasn't like a lot of workers out on the street of Dickinson. There wasn't people really doing much. And then as an intern, I've noticed a lot of people out and about doing things, digging ditches, making sure everything's clean and nice and pretty.
So our biggest accomplishments have been actually getting a staff that is capable, knowledgeable, and subject matter experts in their field, and really developing a team that can trust one another and work together and break down the silos and really just get business done way more effectively.
The direction is going now, it feels more unified, and we're an actual city. I think we're getting to where we need to be to make things happen.
That he brings people together. He listens. He has patience and wants to be involved in our decisions. He's just a part of a team. I think our teamwork, as far as our office staff goes, our teamwork and our ability to work together, he's big on working as a team and getting along. We work well together.
There's a lot of things, but one thing that I notice and appreciate is the focus on customer service in particular, that I feel like we're getting to residents much more quickly, and that's really something that he has inspired. But I still receive complaint, concern, questions, but I also receive attaboy, attagirl messages that people have done a great job, that the city staff is responsive, that they're respectful, that they get things done. And for me, I think when you talk about public service, that's at the heart of public service. And so I'm very proud of that accomplishment.
The biggest accomplishment is actually creating the right type of organization to move this city along.
I think one of the things I see is that he is improving the way that the city operates with all the new software, all the new programs, and he's implementing a whole bunch of new things that are going to help staff to be able to get their jobs done.
I like the way the direction the city's going into. I like that it's a little more family friendly. People seem to be a little more happier. And I like the new changes that we're able to make that are positive.
The team that he has put together for the city of Dickinson is one like no other. The dynamics is an awesome dynamic, and he knows that some of us are young or new leaders, and so with that, he takes that time to guide us in our leadership. And so we're not just managers, we are good leaders. And my staff has complimented me on that several times, and I can thank him for it.
The fact that we listen to the residents now without dismissing their concerns and dismissing what they feel is important for the community and doing our best to meet those needs and wants. You know, we can't meet every want, but we're sure gonna try and we're gonna work our hardest to make sure everybody's getting what they view as the perfect Dickinson.
I was going to yell speech, but I won't do that to you. So, all right. Well deserved, everybody, from Theo on down. We're so glad to have the staff here, the work that you're doing. Everybody is so proud of everything that's going on. So thank you for all your work. All right, moving on. Item 5, announcements and presentations. Announcements concerning items of community interest. No action will be taken or discussed. Council member comments regarding items of community interest in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.0415. Item 5A, council comments. So y'all have a high bar to beat on that. So if any of you have a multimedia presentation or anything, but we will start. Let's start with Councilman Linton.
Good evening, everybody. Council, I have a few things. During the previous meeting, I mentioned that August 2nd was National Night Out, and it looks like in 2008 that was changed for Texas and some other communities to I believe it was the first Tuesday in October, which will be October 4th this year. So just FYI. Also, I completed the cybersecurity awareness training for Texas 2022. FYI, during the training, they equated pretexting to social engineering, which pretexting is actually a type of social engineering, just FYI. I happen to notice. Concerning the Red, White, and Bayou committee meeting, as a performing musician and band leader in this area for 30 years, I'm happy to be asked to assist the city with the Red, White, and Bayou Festival. On both Saturday and Sunday, we will have some of the absolute best local blues artists from the region early in the day, followed by some great Texas country acts later in the day. Also, I was asked by the city to have my band Function perform, so we will start Saturday at 12 p.m. Function has been performing at festivals in this area for over 20 years. We will be donating our services at no charge to give back to the citizens of Dickinson, and look forward to entertaining you all with music from some of the best horn bands of the past 50 years. In addition, Sunday will start at 2 p.m. with local legend, the Pee Wee Bowen Band, once again followed by some great blues artists and Texas country acts later in the day. I've had some very positive input from the citizens that they're very happy the city is bringing this festival back, and I will work hard to make it the most successful music festival in the region. I'd also like to thank Jeree Hefner, Director of Communications, for all the hard work she has done to coordinate this effort in such a short amount of time, as well as those on the committee. only two other things. I promise I'll try to make them short. The shelter this past week, Bayou Animal Services received a donation for the Animal Alliance. The Animal Alliance informed me that they're very proud of the work Bayou Animal Services is providing on the behalf of the citizens and animals of our community. They wanted to do something special, so they donated $5,000 to the shelter. Bayou Animal Services has decided to use those funds for a commercial washer dryer. Currently, the wash blankets and towels for approximately 150 to 200 animals a day while using a domestic washer dryer. This takes a little more than a day to complete. The new commercial washer and dryer will allow them to complete the same task in approximately 1.5 hours versus 1.5 days. They have received some additional donations but are still trying to raise the remaining $10,000 to purchase the $16,000 appliances. The shelter is still looking for sponsors to help them complete their goal, so please contact them if you can help. I'd like to thank Bayou Animal Services Executive Director Ed Boakes for coming up with such an innovative solution to this issue. IT. I'm still evaluating the 144-page presentation by All Covered Conoco Minolta's IT Services Division, who provided highly detailed analysis of the city's IT infrastructure, including wired and wireless network, hardware servers, workstations, disaster recovery, security, VoIP, and building security. This also includes the same for the police department portion, which obviously has additional security requirements. The amount of hardware is extensive. I've discussed some of the findings with Renee Valdez, Director of Information Technology, as well as the new system administrator, Mina Metri, who I met this past week. And we were planning on meeting next week, and I'm hoping that Councilman Simpson can join us next week if he is able. Last thing, I attended the Chamber of Commerce market on the Bayou Farmers Market this past Saturday, and I was luckily we were able to do so with the rain missing us. I was able to perform with the live music that's always there, and I'm looking forward to the next one. They occur on the first Saturday of every month, and I'll be attending the TML newly elected city officials orientation in San Antonio on Thursday and Friday, and I hope to God they can help me with my public speaking. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on, Councilman Decker.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. First of all, retired City Council member Charles Suderman had surgery Monday where they're taking everything out of his right knee, and he'll be he can't put any weight on that knee for 6 weeks. As far as I know, I don't have a recent update, but as far as I know, he's came through the surgery and things are okay. Second, this is the beginning of hurricane season. They're already forming off of Africa. Hopefully the stand might stay around to dry them out, but check your batteries, generators. Be sure to check that filter on the generator, because if you start it, it'll suck it in. Do all the things that they tell you to do. I've been in this Galveston County for all but 3 years of my life. Galveston, Texas City, Lamar, and here. Don't take for granted the weather. You cannot control it. I've been in too many eyes, and that's nice, but the damage that can be done, and the first thing comes to mind is Carla in '61, the tornado. They didn't realize tornadoes were in a hurricane back then, which is hard to believe. But they've come a long way. Heed the warnings. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Brantley.
Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. Those that are attending online, thank you for being here. Kind of hard to follow the presentation. I almost want to move to adjourn just so we can end on a good note, right? So I wanted to say I've had the opportunity to come to quite a few of Theo's management meetings on Monday morning, and I am very impressed with all of our staff. I know we did Shine Awards tonight, but we have an excellent staff, and I think about the past several years and some of the things that have been said about the city and the employees within the city, and I really do appreciate, Theo, what you've done with the staff and the team that you've built. It is a pleasure to come into City Hall and talk to the staff and the excitement that they have and the pride and ownership that they have in each one of their departments. So kudos to you. Thank you for a job well done. And I will say, I was unable to get into the video, but Theo, you do an excellent job. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I appreciate the attention that you give us as council members and trying to educate us when we have questions. I don't remember who said it, but I want to second the fact that I have never walked into City Hall to come in to ask you a question and you not give me 100% of your attention. So it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you very much. I want to second Councilman Litton. I'm pretty excited about Red, White, and Bayou and what we're putting together. There are a lot of volunteers throughout the city that are volunteering their time to try and make this a successful event. We are doing our level best to try and put it together. Jaree, great job trying to put it together as quickly as you have. I'm very excited about having that event. And then lastly, I want to mention Living Faith Outreach, the Hope Connection community event is still going on every Friday from 6 to 9. So if you have kids or if you want to just stop by and check it out, it's at Living Faith Outreach on Dietz Road. It's an excellent venue. I've been there a couple of times. They're playing basketball and volleyball and cornhole, and it's just a great thing for kids on Friday night. So that's all I've got. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson.
Yes, I'd like to welcome everybody that's still here. We lost better than 50% of the crowd. I really feel slighted that I was not invited to be interviewed on this for Theo, but it might be for the best all the way around. But seriously, I for one, I think it's great about that he's been here a year, but I don't understand the big hoopla. When we selected him, and I was one of the people, the mayor was, and so was Mr. Decker. I think we got what we expected. I mean, I remember talking to the lady that was hunting for the city administrator for us, and I said specifically to her, look, I would like to have somebody with about 5 years or so experience, somebody that's going to be dynamic, a lot of new ideas, things like that. I said, don't get me wrong, I understand these persons with 15, 16 years, they're great people too, but they're kind of set in their ways. I'd like to have somebody with some young ideas. So, the guy that you beat out for the job was the part I was talking about setting their ways. And, and you were as dynamic as you could be, I thought, especially when you showed up with your own contract for us to sign, So, I mean, that's something that should have told everybody. It told me real quick, that the man meant business.
We did review that contract, by the way.
We did review
not
it, but
just sign it.
but we had one written and he had written his own. So anyway, thanks for a year well done. Don't sit back on your laurels. Hope to see you continue doing a great job. And with the staff that you do have, I think that it's for a while there it looked like a revolving door, but it seemed like that you got the people in place that you need, and I think we'll be just fine going forward. So thank you, appreciate everything for your first year. Sorry you didn't get your cake, by the way.
All right, Councilwoman Simpson.
Thank you for coming out tonight and participating in our city council meeting in person and online. We appreciate your time and your input. The first day of school is on August 17th for Dickinson ISD for students entering a new campus for the first time. On August 18th, the entire DISD student body of 12,200 students will start their first day of school. Please be mindful of school zones in your area becoming activated again. On that note, Dickinson ISD is short bus drivers. We have our director of transportation and even the office staff taking on bus routes. So we would love to have you join Dickinson ISD. We have competitive rates, we have benefits. DickinsonISD.org/jobs for job openings within Dickinson ISD. Red, White, and Bayou is coming soon with a wonderful lineup for Labor Day weekend. Thank you to countless city staff members and to Ms. Jaree for leading this committee, and to the committee members in the community who have offered their input and their assistance to get this event rolling and set up for success. Thank you also to Councilman Litton, who offered his professional guidance on setting an excellent entertainment lineup. It's going to be groovy. The Dickinson Historical Society has leased 2 Humanities Texas exhibits that will be set up in the Historic Railroad Museum for students and community to view. The two exhibits are called Blessings of Liberty, which will examine the United States Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, which will focus on our first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The exhibits will be free for community members and will be here in September and October. You can look for specific dates and times that will be listed on the Dickinson Historical Society website and Facebook page. Finally, the ribbon cutting for the community mural that was painted on Termini Street will take place on August 31st at 3 p.m. The public is invited to join the Dickinson Chamber of Commerce for this event. More information can be found on their Facebook page. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Councilman Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, staff, citizens, those watching online, welcome. Glad to see you all out. Since the last meeting, I too have completed the cybersecurity training and also have been looking over the IT proposal to add some much needed improvement to our infrastructure. I look forward to those meetings going forward. I'm also excited about the Red, White, and Bayou. My first year on the management district, I believe, was the year we stopped doing it. So it was real popular on the management district at the time, but I'm excited to see it come back. Also had the opportunity to go on the interns field trip to Houston to look at some of the structures, the cistern, some of the things on the Bayou, get a look at the Buffalo Bayou partnership. Great ideas to steal for our Bayou, to incorporate, because ours definitely looks better and is cleaner and smells better, and I digress. But there were some great things that I learned there and had an opportunity to hang out with some of the interns. They're all wonderful people and glad that they took an interest in municipal government. And I said as much at the graduation dinner that was held afterwards. Also to note, Saturday, August 13th at Faith United Methodist Church in Dickinson, Texas, we are having our annual back-to-school shopping spree. For those who may not be familiar, we, as a church, collect donations and then purchase new school clothes, not lightly worn, actual new school clothes, and give them out to the community. No questions asked, just have to be there. While supplies last, it'll go from 8 a.m. on Saturday morning to 12 noon while supplies last. First come, first served. Faith United Methodist Church, 2205 Avenue G, Dickinson, Texas. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. And I'd like to welcome everybody here as well. Thanks for coming, everybody here in person and online. Couple things I'd like to talk about. In the video, the clip that I was in, I talked about some of the great interactions people have had with staff. I really do get a lot of those. I had one this week where actually the issue was resolved and the resident was so pleased he wanted me to call him and have him tell me about how well it went, which that is definitely a new one. So he was very happy to talk to you, very impressed with the staff, the speed with which they arrived, and all of that. So very, very happy to see that, and it's testament to not only the leadership of the city manager, the department heads, but the people actually doing the work. So everybody, keep that up. You're doing a wonderful job. People are noticing. Also attended a backpack drive over at Dunbar Middle School this Saturday. Very well attended. Lots of people were there. A great event, and I hope everybody will go out to Pastor Simpson's event that he just advertised as well that needs some help with school supplies. Also excited about Red, White, and Bayou. The lineup looks great. I've had so many people have just stopped me at random places. Actually, the gentleman on the phone that I was just talking about, he took a minute to say, and I'm so glad that the event's back. I can't wait for it. So he was all kinds of happy about everything. So had that one again as well. So I know everyone is real excited, from vendors down to just the residents. So can't wait for it to come. Also, we had a meeting. A few of us, I know, the EDC president, Bill Schick, was there, along with some people about Water Street. Just some of the things that are moving. You might have seen there's an article going around in, I think, Biz Journals about that development, is some of the latest. So you might take a look at that if you haven't already. But it is coming together, and when it starts, it's going to start fast, and you are going to be seeing some activity up there as they start with kind of the very first phase of some of the construction. So they're getting moving on that, and not a moment, not a day too soon. Let's get it going. So happy about that as well. Anyway, that's really all that I have, other than to just, again, welcome everybody and to proceed. So we'll go on to item 5B, the city manager update. So hopefully he's had time to compose himself over there. So we'll turn it over to our city manager, Theo Melanson.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody, and a very pleasant surprise I was not expecting this evening, so I want to thank staff for that. I have a feeling that jury had something to do with this, so I'm just going to let that be. So thank you. So thank you very much. First of all, Councilman Linton did kind of bring up one staff member that's new that will be working alongside staff and council generally. And so I was going to have Renee, our IT director, come up and introduce our new system administrator, who's going to be integral to our success in information technology.
Well, I was going to say thank you, Mayor and Council, but Mayor's gone.
That's what we had.
It's nice to see you again.
It's not about Mina, it's about you, Renee, just so you know.
I just want to introduce Mina Mitri to you. He is a IT systems administrator. He's coming to us from New York. He's coming from a site where he supported 750 users, and he supported 250 servers with a 6-person team. He is an expert in server management, Azure Cloud Services, AD domain controllers, and most importantly, an expert in Office 365. So I'd like to give him a few minutes to introduce himself to you.
Thank you, everyone, for having me here. It's my pleasure. I don't usually talk in public, but I came from New York. I work for Department of Consumer Affairs and Worker Protection for about 5 years, city government. So I've been SS admin over there. I work with a lot of users day and night. So I'm looking forward to work with City of Dickinson to join the team. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Just wanted to also kind of keep you guys aware. One of the things that we have been working on and kicked off is our strategic mobility plan with Goodman Corporation. So we are, Mayor, you made it back just in time. So with Goodman Corporation, we're looking at having a strategic plan in dealing with the development of a lot of our major thoroughfares, walkability, bikeability being a part of it as well. But one of the major things is having 8 shovel-ready projects so that when certain fundings come available, we are very well placed to get the grant funding. One of our biggest, we actually have 2 very, very major projects that we're going to be looking at first as part of this plan, and that is the walkability and expansion of 1266, and also working on the 517 and Baker intersection as well, and trying to see how we can use funding from the HGAC as well as Safe Routes to School funding as well. So we're going to be working very hard over the coming weeks. We're actually in dialogue with HGAC for funding for a couple of these safety issues that are being discussed here, and so just want to keep you all aware of that. Next up, I did want to bring up that very Houston Business Journal article for everybody. If you do get a chance, it's a really good read. Really talks about the full vision of what is being brought to bear there. One of the biggest things is obviously this project has gotten quite a bit of exposure over time. And so really being able to highlight the positives about it is really nice. The fact that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million investment. Could be more depending on what comes in. They are looking at starting off with some townhomes that would be selling between $500,000 and $600,000, averaging about 2,500 square feet with Bayou frontage on the lots. Along in the phasing for commercial, you're looking at between 50 and 60,000 square feet of retail, and restaurants to be built as part of the project, as well as about 20 to 30,000 square feet of office space as well. There's going to be about a 100-room hotel that's going to anchor the site, and I do know that we're currently working with them on being able to have a conference center on site as well. So it's going to be a relatively large project, and like I said, about $100 million project as is currently constructed, but it could be more depending on the interest in the private sector to be a part of this project. So if you do get a chance, check it out. Lastly, I was going to do just a real quick update on a couple of things. One is Gum Bayou Widening project is still ongoing. Very large detention ponds are going to be constructed along with widening of the bayou itself. We also have, we're finalizing Pin Oak and working on Nickelstone for sign off with the GLO and so forth. Also, our buyout and acquisition program deadline is August 31st, so please, by all means, if anybody does have an interest, please apply by August 31st. We're also in the phasing of designing the hazard mitigation grant with the CDBG, GLO CDBG. That's the $49.2 million grant project that we're working on for the diversionary canal. We're currently in the midst of getting the application through for the $15 million GLO application that we were actually, HGAC has allocated $15 million to the city, and so now we're putting together a project that meets all of the criteria for the funding of that $15 million that's funding from HGAC and the GLO. And lastly, we're working on the American Rescue Plan Act funding of making sure that we procure everything as set out in the ARPA funding that we've received, which is approximately $5 million. So with that, that's all that I have for this evening, and turn it back over to you, sir.
All right, does anyone have any questions about the report? Councilman Wilson?
And maybe I need to, I don't know, is it you or Zollers that's handling the engineering for the Gum Bayou project? Yes. Okay, maybe the question will go then. Since they're cleaning and widening and doing all this other stuff, is there a prevention put in there to stop that bayou from rising in a storm surge? Is there anything that'll do that?
I'll let Catherine speak on it.
I told her I was going to make her talk, so.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Is there
Okay.
what?
A few years ago, we had a problem on Dickinson Bayou to where every time the bayou rose, it rose into a subdivision. And then when it rained, of course, then they had flooding problems. So after Ike, we put in flowback prevention on all the drainage that went into Dickinson Bayou from that subdivision. My question is there anything that'll be put down there at the mouth of this completed job where actually Gum Bayou is, to where if Gum Bayou rises, which it will in a storm with storm surge, that it doesn't send that water up this completed project and then actually cut off the flow of water that would be going into the system to go out?
Not in this project. What this is doing is providing additional capacity in the bayou itself.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, there are 3 very large detention ponds being excavated, which will store water when the waters do come up. So what we've modeled and we're going to show with the completion of this project is that it will, in heavy rain events, divert the water into these 3 ponds and give the West Gum Bayou more of a chance to drain out before the water starts to rise. But no, there is no backflow situation in the project.
Okay, just quickly, could it be done to that project on another grant or something? I mean, we're doing all these great drainage projects, don't get me wrong, but if they all go into a bio as their final outfall, then as soon as, like I said, when you start having, tidal surge, which you're going to have in a storm, and the bios start rising, they shut that great project off.
There is always the potential to have gates installed, so that is something we could take a look at and evaluate the hydraulics of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilman Decker.
Any news when California is going to be started?
So right now, and I think this might be something that, obviously Hugh and Zollers can speak to as well. We're currently working on the scoping of that project. A couple of things is that the budget for the project was created in a pre-COVID world, and a lot of the bonding went out for the funding. And so as we know, the construction costs have risen. We also have quite a few conflicts with utilities generally on California. And so right now, I think the county is going to be working with us to kind of look at the design and seeing a proper scoping for the amount of budget that's there, because we're probably going to have to skinny some things up. I may have to turn it over to Catherine if you want to speak more on that.
Right, and what I'm sure most of you know is that this is a Galveston County project. The work is being done by another engineering firm, McDonough Engineering. We have had progress meetings with them. We continue to work through the design issues, and they're making modifications. And then as this design process progresses, the prices continue to go up. So we're trying to get the job done within the budget, and so some things might have to be modified to keep that where we can all afford it, the county and the city, because we're cost-sharing partners.
That's good. It should have already been started because of cost. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, let's move on. Thank you, ma'am. All right, item 6, public comments. Members of the public are invited to give comments at this time, lasting not longer than 3 minutes. Comments may be general in nature or may address a specific agenda item and should be addressed to the entire council, not individual members of council or staff. Any speaker making personal attacks or using vulgar or profane language, shall forfeit his or her remaining time and shall be seated. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate. We have 3 general comments signed up and then 2 for specific agenda items. The first comment is Mr. David Lehman.
Good evening, Council and Attorney.
Could you please give us your name and address?
My name's David Lehman, and I live at 3802 Texas Avenue, and I've been here all my life. My father was a World War II fighter pilot, and he was a volunteer fireman here as well. Some of you may know me, some of you probably don't, and that's quite all right. I changed federal law when I was 32. I was trained and mentored by the man responsible for the Vietnam Memorial on the Mall. I've been up against state judges, federal judges. I've sat down with the chairman of the Armed Services Committee in the House, the Inspector General of the Department of Defense, and the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. So anyway, I've got a major problem here, and I think the entire city of Dickinson needs to understand this problem. I've been talking to the water board for 3 months straight. I'm tired of talking to the water board. They're not doing anything. You've got a contract general manager over there who decided after the freeze, when he was told by an employee that they had lost pressure, he said he wasn't going to fill out a boil water notice for 15 minutes worth of pressure. Later that same night, before the evening was over, that same employee said, what do you want to do about this loss of pressure at this one facility? And this is all by text message. This isn't something he said, she said. You can go back and look at the records of the text messages and find out what this contract general manager said. If you value your life like I value mine, and I value my grandchildren's life and my children's life, and I value all of your life, you don't need to be playing with the water. Now, I've talked for 3 months to the water board, and they're not doing anything. They sit on their hands. So now I'm talking to you. I'm going to be calling TCEQ this week or next when I get some time, and we're going to do something about this. Now, that employee that asked about filing a boil water notice, he was fired within the next week. Not retired, but fired. Now, it's under the guise of retirement because he was a 42-year employee of the water company. 42-year employee, okay? And he was told, which is against state and federal law, you're either going to retire or I'm going to fire you, okay? Let me say that one more time. The contract general manager of the water board said he was going to, you were told the employee, you're going to retire or I'm going to fire you. That's against state and federal law when you mention retirement and being fired at the same time. So now, let me go on to some other things that's happening at the water board, because I'm not going to have my family sick because we've got somebody that decides that he's going to run his own ship and not play by the state of Texas rules. Okay? Mask mandates. When the governor decided that no more mask mandates, he kept his mask mandates in that lobby going. He doesn't understand that he's got a boss by the name of Abbott right now. He doesn't understand that. Okay? Number 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, a gentleman that sells insurance in this town told me a story about the contract general manager that years ago was actually the general manager, and he talked about how this general manager had took bids on repairing the manhole covers in Dickinson, and a contractor was doing the work. This insurance salesman here in town was then the president of the water board. He goes down to Corpus because there's where the convention was, and he walks into an arena, and long story short, he asked one of the guys, why didn't you bid on the manhole covers? He goes, we're doing that work. This gentleman said, no, you're not. I'm the president of the water board, and you're not doing this work. He said, those are my trucks. Those are my men. I put in a bid underneath another contractor, and they got the deal. So long story short, there was about a $200,000 discrepancy in between the contractor that was actually doing the work and the contractor that won the bid. And when this gentleman found out about it, he corrected that. He should have gone to the district attorney and let the district attorney know there was approximately $200,000 worth of fraud going on, and that did not happen. Why that didn't happen, I can't tell you. I'm not that gentleman, but that's the story. Now, I've told the board all of this, okay? All of this. And they just look at me. They don't do anything. They don't investigate. And I don't know why. Because it's my health and your health on some of that stuff, and it's morals and ethics on the other stuff. Okay? This same contract general manager who was the general manager years ago, at some point in his life, he was down in a manhole, and he was taking measurements for some guy that was down there measuring pipe. He wasn't a general contractor at that time. He was the general manager at the time. He was doing something with one of his buddies in the same industry. And this employee that was fired after 42 years, this general manager told 2 employees of the water board and 2 contractors, since he's been back, that this employee threw something down on top of him and was down in the manhole. I've known that employee for about 45, 50 years of my life, and I'm almost 60. And that isn't what that guy's about, because he was a 42-year employee of the water board, of the water district. We didn't do that. Something from inside the manhole, maybe by the ladder, fell and hit this gentleman in the head and scratched him. Didn't hurt him, just scratched him. That's the same, when the general manager told that story, that is the same employee that was fired, the 42-year employee of the water board. I don't know what we're doing here, and I realize this is not your problem right now, but y'all need to take that water board over. There's nothing going on at the water board except people taking $150 every month and eating some sandwiches afterwards. There's nothing going on. There's no management. There's no skill sets. I've tried to talk to the water board and get them individually so I could sit down and talk to them. Nothing happens. They don't return your call. They don't return your emails.
We're a little past the 3 minutes. I did let you go on a little bit.
I appreciate it. You have
All
a
right.
great evening.
You too.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Very frustrated with the water board, and since it is in the city, most of this is in the city, I think we ought to really take a hard look at what's going on here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Mr. Ed Beckwith.
Thank you very much.
Please give your address. If you give your address for the record as well.
My name is Ed Beckworth. I live at 420 Old Orchard Drive at Dickinson, Texas, zip code 77539. I'm a member of the Bayou Park 3 Homeowners Association, and I've brought some of the association people with me, and we're here to shine on employees. So this is my wife, Dr. Beckworth, which resides with me at the same residence. Here you go, dear. I got to make a little joke.
Good
People
enough.
are all
Good
happy
enough.
here tonight. Here. Roberta Farrington.
And Chris Perkins.
Chris Perkins. We're all in the same association, and we have some positive news here.
On behalf of the Bayou Park 3, Section 3, Board of Directors and all the residents, we wanted to thank publicly some of the employees at the City of Dickinson. We've had a problem with, you could say, compliance. When our subdivision was built, islands were put in the streets, and there was room for only one car to pass on each side. And this was a safety hazard, you know, especially as we're getting teenage drivers going through there. And for emergency vehicles, if emergency vehicles came through the subdivision and a car was parked there, they wouldn't be able to get through. So last year, we took it upon ourselves and moved the islands that didn't have lights. But this year, we thought we could maybe get a little help since we had a problem with compliance. We also have been trying to get a light at the front entrance of our subdivision. At night, it's very dark, and in the mornings, especially certain times of the year, the kids are out there waiting for the school bus in the dark, and it's just not safe. As a mother, as a grandmother, it's just not the way it ought to be. So, who we would like to thank is first Theo Melanchon. I haven't dealt with him personally, but he is the go-to guy. He's the one who reviewed our plans and approved our plans, and I can tell you, we've been working on this for like 2.5 or 3 years to get some help with this. So, thank you, Theo. Next is Chase Carey, the Assistant City Manager. He was simply amazing. He helped us save money by working with Texas, New Mexico, so that they would come out and move those light poles. The light poles, we had been told, cost thousands of dollars to move, and we thought, gosh, we only have 47 residences in our subdivision, so it was going to be really hard to be able to compensate that. So Chase worked with them. He also recognized how important that light on Pabst. Prior city managers had said, yeah, I know that area, yeah, it needs a light, but nothing ever happened. So now then, we have a light out there. We already had a utility pole, so it didn't require additional utility pole. We just needed a light hung up there, and it looks great. So we're all excited for the school year. Would also like to thank Jeff Paulman with Buildings and Permits. He's been in our area an awful lot because we've had a lot of construction going on. And he was our go-to man with who do we call about this or that or whatever. So we'd like to thank him. Okay, I'm going to need help now. Sylvia Ardoin?
Yeah, Ardoin, yes.
Dwayne.
Heather Shiner.
Yay!
By the way, you know you always have treats in your office. I can't resist it.
Giving up our secrets. You don't know what we have back here.
She's with code enforcement, and I think she was really instrumental when she came out there and measured our streets and said, well, this never should have been allowed to be built this way. So we really appreciate her work. We believe all of these people should have a Shine Award because they've all been exceptionally professional, courteous, very helpful. I think too many times we always want to point out what's done wrong or what's bad or how you need to improve this or you need to do something else. But when it comes time to say thank you, sometimes we fall back and we don't give people the recognition they deserve. So that's why we wanted to come and be sure that these people are recognized for the quality city employees, and they're definitely all assets to the city of Dickinson. Thank you.
Theo, we want a picture. Picture made. And Jeff, come on up here. Come on, Jeff.
I'll shake that.
Get
And a vest.
You got a homemade certificate. We didn't order these online. We made them. Grab your certificate. I mean, this one woman has a PhD and she produced those. Turn it on. Your bass flash on too?
I was uploading pictures.
Soften it up and make my face look good. Okay, you run out of film?
No, I was in the process of uploading the Shine Awards pictures from my phone. so
This is
that's
a better
why.
camera anyway.
Yes, all right. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Yeah, that's more megapixels probably.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to say, I've been on the phone, I've talked to 3 other different city managers the past 3 years. This guy responded. Chase responded. I just had to say that. Folks, you got a great group here. We got Kitty, and I think you all know that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We'll move on to item 7, the consent agenda. The following items are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion on these items unless a council member requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed after the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion to approve by Councilman Wilson, a second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moves us on to item 8. I'm sorry, item, skipped, no, I'm right, item 8. Public hearing and action items from public hearing. Item 8A, conduct a public hearing concerning a request for a flood damage prevention and protection variance from the floodways located within areas of special flood hazard established in section 14-121 or areas designated as floodways. Since the floodway is an extremely hazardous area due to the velocity of floodwaters, which carry debris, potential projectiles, and erosion potential, encroachments are prohibited, including fill, new construction, substantial improvements, and other development within a flood hazard area. Requirements of Section 14-145 of the Code of Ordinances, with such variance allowing the existing residential structure to be elevated to 18 inches above the required base flood elevation required for the existing AE flood zone, which is located within a floodway on certain portions of the property for approximately 0.21 acres located at 4607 East 28th Street and legally described as Abstract 78 R Hall Nicholstone Edition Lot 19, 20, and 21 Block 213. We'll begin with the staff presentation.
Good evening. Some time ago, Mr. Larson came to us and he informed us that he had been awarded some money through the GLO program to elevate his house. After we did some research on that, we quickly discovered that this house happened to be in a regulatory floodplain, or floodway, I'm sorry. So, that being said, the ordinance prohibits us from doing that type of work in the floodway, and so therefore, we are here now to see about getting him a variance so that he can spend his money that the GLO graciously gave him to elevate his home. This property is located in Nicholstone Edition, close to, I'm sorry.
It's right off of Texas Avenue at 28.
Yeah, Texas Avenue, I was trying to, can't see that. I've got a better picture representing the floodway. Also, this property has already been through a Board of Adjustments and gotten a variance for some setback requirements for the porches. So they've already agreed to give it a variance for that. And then this is the house that we'll be elevating. And this is the floodway and where it's located within that floodway. I think as far as the staff presentation, that's pretty much all I have.
Well, Jeff, if you just wanted to tell us what would be the staff's recommendation?
Staff's recommendation is we're in favor of it. We feel like the structure's already in the floodplain. We're not adding to the floodplain or the floodway. We're not adding anything into the floodway. We're going to elevate it, and we're going to do some flood venting under the structure, which would allow the water to actually move through easier than it is now as it sits.
Yeah, and just so for council to be, as we're kind of, just so they can understand in your presentation, the reason why the variance is necessary is because it is in the floodway. It is construction in a floodway. We technically, as a staff, cannot approve any type of construction in the floodway. So, but in this situation, what it is it's an elevation project, taking a house out of flood
Out of harm's
risk.
way, yes, it will actually reduce the cost of loss. So if it's elevated up out of the floodwaters, we spend less money to rebuild the house and anyway, yeah, rebuild.
All right. We can't ask you any questions yet, so
Okay.
we might leave. All right, thank you. Next, we have applicant presentation, and I know we did have someone signed up for that. Oh, yeah, come on up.
Brian Larson, and item 8A and 8B are my home, and really, I just signed up. I didn't know if I needed to. As I understand, the city has really taken care of. So if you have questions for me, I'm here. Otherwise, I don't really have anything to say.
Yeah, you just have the right to speak if you want to.
Okay,
So,
I'm good.
all right. Okay, public comments, of which there are none for this item. There's no need for a rebuttal, so we will adjourn the public hearing at 8:29 p.m. I'm not sure when I started the public hearing, but 2 minutes, sure. All right, item 8, let's see, B, consider granting a request for a flood damage prevention and protection variance from the floodways located within areas of special flood hazard established in section 14-21 are areas designed as floodways. Since the floodway is an extremely hazardous area due to the velocity of floodwaters, which carry debris, potential projectiles, and erosion potential, encroachments are prohibited, including fill, new construction, substantial improvements, and other development within a flood hazard area requirements, section 14-145 of the Code of Ordinances, with such variance allowing the existing residential structure to be elevated to 18 inches above the required base flood elevation required for the existing AE flood zone, which is located within a floodway on certain portions of the property for approximately 0.21 acres located at 4607 East 28th Street and legally described as abstract 78R Hall, Nicholson Edition, Lot 19, 20, and 21, Block 213.
Move to approve.
A second.
All right, Johnny Simpson, move to approve.
Got a question.
And Councilman Brantley seconds, and we have a question from Councilman Decker.
So where he got the money from, do they have to be in agreement with this?
Yeah, well, yeah, so the reason why we're here today is because the federal funding received requires that obviously they have to check off everything saying that they got all the local approvals in place before they'll have the release of funding. By our rules, because it's in the floodway, we as a staff don't have the authority to authorize this type of construction in the floodway. But since it's an elevation and it's taking risk out of the floodway 18 inches above the floodway, that's why the staff is recommending approval. If it would be a new construction in floodway beneath the flood, within the flood risk zone, then obviously we'd be not recommending approval.
Thank you.
Councilman Wilson.
There's more than one home there involved. So every home that's, if they apply for this money, every home will have to have a variance done for it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, they can't just, okay. My curiosity was how the heck they built the homes in the floodway in the first place.
Well, many of these homes were built, I mean, obviously, one, historically, if you're talking about, this is an established neighborhood from many, many, many years ago.
Right.
So, building standards were a little different. Also, I'd also say in a post-Harvey world, the flood maps have drastically changed since Harvey. So areas that were not considered flood risk or in a floodplain have now been added to that floodway. So, that's why you'll see a lot of existing neighborhoods sitting feet below what is considered, the flood, below flood elevation.
I understand that. I know that in 79, every time we had a flood here, that there was a changing in the classification of the flood zone area, but I didn't know that, I never knew that they actually put some of them in a flood way, okay, because the floodway is usually established long prior to that. But anyway, all right, I was just wondering if everybody have to come.
Councilman Linton?
I have the same question as
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yep. Mr. Larson, this is a
Councilman
question
Bentley.
for you. You don't have to answer it. It's just a matter for my knowledge. Is this the FEMA coverage coming through your increased cost of compliance? Is it an ICC coverage? Is is FEMA funding for the raising of the structure, right? Is it through increased cost of compliance, your ICC coverage? Or is it a separate grant?
No, it's not using ICC.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. And I believe we do have to do a second reading on this, or is this just one reading? Just so the residents are aware. Okay, so just be aware, we'll have to approve it one more time. Okay. Okay. Well, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to motion for a 5-minute recess.
All right, there's a motion for a 5-minute recess. Is there a second? Second. All right, there's no discussion on a motion to recess. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will reconvene at 8:39 p.m. If everybody would take your seats. All right. We'll move on to item 8C, conduct a public hearing regarding the removal of Mr. Kevin Edmonds from the Zoning Board of Adjustments and Building Standards Commission of the City of Dickinson. And I will at first turn it over to our city attorney, Mr. Pruitt, to talk about this procedure because it's a little bit different in this case, so he'll explain.
Right, so for council and mayor and members of the audience, generally, if the city receives a complaint about any sitting board member, it's handled at the council level, and they can remove or appoint anybody at will. However, since some of the complaints that the city received about this particular board member were about the zoning board of adjustment, then that triggers two matching issues. So you have a state law provision and a code of ordinances provision that require before removal, the council has to find cause for removal, and they can only do that after holding a public hearing and then provide a written notice of whatever cause might be found. And so the particular person at issue is Mr. Kevin Edmonds, and there was two issues raised to the city. One was potential conflict of interest, and one was potential unethical conduct regarding a property transaction. And so because of those issues were raised, in order to have any kind of issue to handle the removal or remaining on the board, the council has to go through this process of holding a public hearing and then making a decision after that.
All right. With that, we'll move on to a staff presentation portion. Well, actually, first of all, we'll convene the public hearing at 8:41. And Mr. Prado, if you would come up, introduce yourself, and give your report.
My name is Jesse Prado. I'm a retired Austin police detective with over 30 years of experience conducting investigations. I was contacted by Olson & Olson, Mr. Pruitt, to conduct an investigation for an internal investigation from a complaint that began from a resident here in Dickinson of harassment and conflict of interest involving a code enforcement officer, Tammy Edmonds, and her husband, Kevin Edmonds. I accepted the case and began my investigation. I received a lot of my information, paperwork-wise, from the Marshal Shauna Bello, and I received a lot of different complaints, but I decided to start one at a time. And the very first one that I started was the complaint of a property that was purchased by the Edmonds, both Kevin and his wife Tammy. That was a property that was next door to their residence. During my investigation, I conducted interviews, and I learned that there was a prior agreement between the Edmonds and another neighbor about a particular property in between both of their properties. So to give you a picture, it was the Edmonds property, a vacant lot, and the neighbor's property. Both of the neighbor and the Edmonds had stated in the past that they wanted to purchase that property if it ever became available. So throughout my investigation, I learned that Tammy Edmonds had written citations to the owner of that property, that lot that was in between the neighbor and the Edmonds, 5 citations. And that caused the owner of the lot, and I've gotten a statement from him, he wanted to get rid of it. He said he was being harassed, and he did not want to have that property anymore because of the harassment he was receiving. I learned that all of the tickets or the citations that were given, this code enforcement, were all tossed out of court because of a conflict of interest. And so they were never prosecuted, in other words, because of the conflict. The neighbor met with the owner of the property and agreed to purchase the property, and did the purchase for $30,000, and then met with the Edmonds, and the Edmonds gave, I guess after the property was purchased, 22 days later, the Edmonds purchased the property. There's deeds where they purchased it and split the property to make their own properties larger. After that was done, both the neighbor and the Edmonds had agreed that the neighbor was going to build a structure, I believe a garage, on his half of that property. And the agreement was that they were going to be able to use the culvert that the Edmonds had put into their half of the property. And when the neighbor went to use the culvert to start building on his side of the property, the Edmonds backed out. Mr. Edmonds backed out of that deal, stating that he wasn't going to be allowed to use that culvert if Mr. Edmonds wasn't the contractor building the garage or the structure. My investigation has shown that this was unethical conduct, just for the fact that the property was targeted and the tickets were issued, and the owner was so frustrated that he decided to sell. The owner stated that he would still own the property today had the Edmonds not harassed him. And that's a short briefing of the investigation as it continues.
We can't ask any questions at this time, but we may on the following agenda item, unless you have anything else to add.
I just want to check one thing.
All right.
I believe that's it, sir.
All right, thank you. This will move us on to item, well, we're still on the same item, but to public comments, and we do have one public comment sign up for this, Mr. Garland Copeland. If you'd please state your address for us.
Excuse me. My name is Garland Copeland. I live at 3717 Kellner Road, Dickinson. The reason I signed up to speak on the agenda for tonight's council meeting, it listed that this would be talked about and that the next item on the agenda was going to be possible removal of the board based on a written charge. Okay? I assume that if you're going to talk about a written charge, you would have the written charge. When I asked to get a copy of the written charge, I found out that it doesn't exist. And so that didn't make sense to me. Now, does this boil down to a possible malfeasance, or is this a difference in a personality with somebody, or what's really going on? You know, neighbors have disputes all the time. But I would expect as a citizen, if there's something if the law requires a written charge or written, that would be in existence. I just got through hearing a lot of facts that may end up being in that charge, but so far all you're going on is a verbal report, I guess. I would expect this to be tabled until the charge is developed, and then citizens like myself can look at it. Thank you.
Mr. Pruitt, is there a charge?
Well, the charge will happen, I mean, you have to hold a public hearing to find the cause first, and then the cause would be written in the written charge after you find cause. So there can't be, right now, there can't be a written charge until you as a council decide that if there's cause to remove the board member. And if you find that there's cause, then we will, document that in the written charge and deliver that to the board member.
And that would presumably be the document that does exist. I mean,
Because the way the state law is written is you can, the only way a zoning board of adjustment member can be removed is finding of cause by the council, documented in a written charge, but after a public hearing. So that's why we have to do the public hearing to even address the issue of any kind of cause that might be there.
all right. There's also an opportunity for any rebuttal of the presentation. So is there any? All right, please state your name and your address.
Hello, my name is Kevin Edmonds, and my address is 4136 Gum Drive. So I didn't have any notice of any type to be able to prepare for this hearing today. Nobody had any discussion with me about it. But me and my neighbor just recently stopped talking. But prior to that, we had done even business together. So I want to tell you first how the property transaction really went down, if I may be able to do so. Mr. Fisher was actually mowing his lot one day, and he had already listed his house, which was across the street, prior to this. The neighbor calls me in the morning and says, "Hey, Brian's over there next door, and he's mowing. He has his house listed over there. If we went in house, would you be interested in buying this property with us?" And we said that we would. We actually talked about a price that we would be agreeable to. They went and approached Mr. Fisher, and they made the deal with him. We actually funded half of their closing costs to make sure they didn't actually have to come up with any money out of their pocket. So the opportunity was brought to me. We didn't pursue the opportunity. As far as the harassment's concerned, we'd actually had to call the police on Mr. Fisher at least twice after a hearing in which his permit, his special use permit for an Airbnb was denied. At that moment, everything just turned upside down between Mr. Fisher and the rest of the neighbors there. But his property was located next to us, and he did harass us. And we actually called the Dickinson Police Department twice in order to intervene into that situation. And at one point, he actually threatened me with physical harm. So I was asked if I wanted to go file a complaint with the sheriff's office. I'm a grown man. I can handle it. He didn't actually crawl over my fence, so I didn't need to do that. So I was on my way. I don't know what else to say. I haven't heard anything in the investigation that has anything to do with my conduct as a professional here at the city in my position. I think that's all I have for right now, Mayor.
All right, thank you. With that, we will adjourn the public hearing at 8:53 p.m. and we will move on to item 8D, discussion and possible action regarding the adoption of a written charge finding cause to remove Mr. Kevin Edmonds from the Zoning Board of Adjustment and Building Standards Commission. So do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
All right, there's a motion to approve the adoption of the written charge. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, and we have a second by Councilman Brantley. Move on to discussion. I have a few things I'd like to say. First of all, Anna, did you attempted to call Mr. Edmonds twice, did you not? Okay. And you've contacted him previously about issues with Board of Adjustment, so the city has contacted him? Well, but in his capacity as the head of the Board of Adjustments, Yvonne is normally contacted. Okay. All right. So I'm hearing that, no one was told, but they were told. There is a written charge. Was presented. Council has it. It was given to the public at this. Correct. A couple other things here. So I've looked through this, and I've spoken to Mr. Prado, and It's like going some of these, it's not just an issue of, oh, there's disputes with neighbors, but it's a dispute with one neighbor, with two neighbors. It's an issue with citations that are filed were dismissed by the court as well, were found wanting. Things were documented in personnel files that were not done properly. There's a lot of issue here that there were things going on that are not kosher. Mr. Prado, I have a question for you as well.
Yes, sir.
So I understand when you were going your investigation, which is still ongoing, this is just kind of what rose to the immediate surface, and you're still talking to people, is that correct?
That's correct, sir. I'd stopped the investigation because I felt a sense of urgency to report it because of the conduct.
Now, you expressed to me that you felt that there would be concern for the public good if we were to leave Mr. Edmonds on the board earlier. Could you talk about that, like why you felt that way?
Well, because of there's a possibility of public corruption involved that I've yet to even start past this one issue. This is the first investigation that I started looking into, but I was concerned that he's still on the board and still has power because there's other people that they're in fear of him and his wife. And I felt this sense of urgency to report it before I even concluded my investigation.
And you indicated that in some cases you actually had trouble getting people to participate in the investigation based on that fear. Is that right?
That's correct, sir. And I deal with that frequently in other cities, but in this one, I moved it to the top of my investigations list because there were so many people that are afraid.
Understood. And I know in some of the, well, I guess that's all I have for the moment. Does anyone else have any other questions?
No,
Or just a statement or whatever you want to.
yeah, I
Councilor
seconded the
Brantley.
motion to allow for the conversation, but I don't have a copy of the written charge. Can we have a copy of that?
Actually, he wants one, and we can distribute them.
I think they were put at the front, but. Also, you did receive a version of it by email
Oh, did
last
I?
week. Yeah. All council was sent it last week. It's there, yeah.
Council, just to and for the public, just since Olson & Olson was engaged to hire Mr. Prado, the communications that he has with the city are protected by attorney-client privilege. You have what's been passed out in the public is a summary with names removed of a portion of the investigation. And again, the written charge portion can only come after council makes a decision. So what the action is going to be is if you find that that you feel that this particular board member should not be on the zoning board of adjustment for the cause.
The same.
While everyone is reviewing, if I was going to have Justin kind of go over maybe a little bit like what's the, threshold for a finding, or if there's, or what would the state demand for such a removal?
So the cause, so again, the state law, it's a essentially one sentence provision that says that zoning board of adjustment member can only be removed by cause as determined by, it says the appointing body, which would be you. So the council determines what the cause is and at what level satisfies that cause. And so then again, that happens through a written charge after a public hearing. And so essentially what's being asked to be, what was reported by the citizen or multiple citizens, is that there was, some conflict of interest issues and some issues dealing with real estate transactions. And so the question before you would be that, from what you've heard, what's been presented to you, of course, in confidence through the partial investigation, and then mentioned today in the public comment portion of the public hearing, does that raise the bar enough for you that you can find cause to remove the member from the zoning board of adjustment? And if you do find that, that's when the written charge will be drafted to match whatever cause that you feel that you find or don't find.
Mr. Prado,
Councilman Sims. Yeah.
how many, right now as part of your investigation, how many complaints have you been instructed to investigate? Or not instructed, but how many do you have so far?
I haven't counted them, sir. I know that I have an entire book filled with them, but I haven't investigated them. I didn't get past this first one before I felt that sense of urgency to let Olson & Olson know what my belief was based on the facts that I gathered. I can tell you that based on the statements, the purchase or the acquisition of the property was well before, it was made well before the gentleman decided to sell. And it wasn't just because he was selling that day. It was the agreement between the neighbors was many months before the seller decided to sell it, and he only sold it. He didn't have it listed because the other neighbor went up to him.
Did you ever, excuse me if you don't mind me, just real quick for clarification, did you speak with the other property owner that was between, I can't remember I don't know their name, not the one that's right next to Mr. and Mrs. Edmonds, but the one that they entered into the agreement with? Did you ever talk to them?
Yes, sir, I did. They're the ones that gave me the confession.
And so from speaking to you earlier, your concern was really one of public trust, right? If you were to remain on the board, that your conversations with others indicated that there's just not trust in the city with the way things stand right now in that position.
Correct. And there's other allegations that I can't get into at this point that I'm continuing, but not with this particular real estate deal. I'm only reporting on the real estate deal right now. But I must continue the investigation because there's a lot more to it than just this one real estate transaction. But there's fear out there. People are afraid. And that's what my main concern was. That's why I moved it to the top of the list.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Based on your statements, I guess in this specific instance, there's three parties that are kind of in part to this situation, the Edmonds and then the neighbors. Did you speak to all three of those parties?
I did not speak to the Edmonds. I spoke to the other two parties, the owner of the property that was sold, and then I spoke to the neighbor that initially purchased a property and then did a subsequent sale for $15,000 to cut the property in half with the Edmonds.
So
And
the
it was all
person
a
that
cash transaction.
Sorry, the person that sold the property, did they give you any indication as to why they sold the property?
Yes, sir. He stated that the only reason he sold both of his properties was because of the harassment from the Edmonds, even though the citations had been tossed out of court. He said that the harassment was there, so he put up the Airbnb house for sale, and he was out mowing his lawn when he was approached by the neighbor to purchase it, but the neighbor had already agreed with the Edmonds that if they ever bought it, they would go half and half. And the neighbor went upstairs, and his statement was he went upstairs, discussed it, and then came back down and offered him $30,000 for the property. The neighbor also stated that if he'd have known, if the seller would have known that the Edmonds had wanted that property, he would have never sold it. If he'd have known that they were going to end up acquiring that property.
So do you think, but for the harassment, that the party that owned the property would still own it now?
That was his last statement to me, sir, and I spoke to him and his wife at the same time. He was in another state, but we did it on three-way call, and he said that he would continue, he would still own that property today had it not been for the harassment from the city.
Did you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. Any other questions or comment? Council Simpson?
Comments, but not for Mr. Prado. Thank you. So here's my thing. Yes, the charge is on like one particular transaction, but we've been dealing with this for quite a few months. Multiple complaints, multiple allegations, and they all had a thread, right? Either the complainant had property that the Edmonds wanted, or they had a business that had beat the Edmonds out for a bid. And some of the people have decided to not even come to us with the complaints and take them to larger agencies. This is something that we've been discussing since before we have our current council. So this is not rushed. We hired an outside non-biased person to investigate this, who is, when he leaves here, going to conduct some much higher profile investigations. This is low on the totem pole in terms of that. So this is not something rushed, and it is more than one. I recall making several comments when I heard it, like, how many are we up to now? And so I just want that to be noted, that this is, yes, the charge is for one, but we have multiple complaints along this thread. And my understanding is where it becomes a conflict of interest is that even if certain things were legit in terms of citations or some other issue, those same very people would have to come before the Zoning Board of Adjustments or the Building Standards Commission to get relief on some of these issues in that same thing. So I just wanted to make sure that was noted.
Any other questions or comments? No? All right. Hearing none, we'll take this to vote. I'm going to roll call vote this one. for the record. So we'll start, we'll go in, do you have a question? Council Wilson.
Are we voting, I want to be clear on what we're voting on. Are we voting on the removal?
Turn your mic on.
Are we voting on the removal of Mr. Edmonds?
Yeah, let me be clear. The motion on the floor is to adopt this written charge pending and removal.
And this is all, we are all on legal ground with everything? I mean,
You're absolutely on legal ground. I mean, if you want clarity on what to do, that the item's written broad enough to, if you want to find a specific cause, you can do that, and that's what the statute gives you the ability to do. So you can, the one that was presented to the city was conflict of interest, and then it was unclear exactly what the cause was, but essentially it deals with the real estate transaction. Unethical conduct is how it was presented by Mr. Prado. You can adopt those as the cause. If you have the ability to set the standard for whatever cause it is, if you just feel like that the cause ought to be just like no confidence as a member of the zoning board of adjustment, that's perfectly fine too, because you as the appointing body have the ability to set whatever the cause is.
I'm just trying to clear up exactly what we're voting on.
And the reason I'm saying that is because that's what the action would be.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll roll call vote this. I'll start with myself. I vote aye. Councilman Simpson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Simpson?
I vote aye.
Councilman Wilson?
Aye.
Councilman Brantley?
Aye.
Councilman Decker?
No.
Councilman Linton? All right, the motion carries 6-1. All right, we'll move on to item 9A, ordinances. Consideration and possible action on an ordinance concerning a request for a specific use permit for a vacation rental in conventional residential zoning district for approximately .379 acres located at 4517 Mariners Mooring Street and legally described as abstract 155, page 4, part 4 of lot 29 and all of lot 30, 29-0 Mariners Mooring subdivision, second and final reading.
Move to approve.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second? And a second by Councilman Litton. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Councilman Decker, did you vote aye?
I said aye, yeah.
You did, okay. Motion carries with Councilman Wilson voting no. Item 10, action items for consideration. Item 10A, discussion and possible action to approve the no new revenue and voter approval rates for tax year 2022. And we'll turn it over to Theo Melanson and probably Harrison as well.
Yes, Harrison will be our subject matter expert here. So just wanted to let you know is that we've got from the appraisal district and so forth our no new revenue rate and and our voter approval rates. Those are pretty much predetermined based on appraisals and so forth of the city. I'll let him speak a little bit about it because you'll have to, in these items, these are pretty perfunctory. These portions, especially A and B, are going to be, like I said, relatively just part of the process and really kicks us off into budget year. So,
Mayor, Council, item 10A relates to the no new approval rate and the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate. Each year, once the certified rolls come out, the next thing is the truth in taxation calculations, it's called the TNT. And basically, Galveston County will take that information and come up with the calculations for the no new revenue and the voter approval rate. That's the attachment to this item. And when we get those, one of the requirements is that the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate is presented to council for approval, that it was presented. And as well as a requirement is before the official tax rate gets adopted, it has to be published on the website and it's noted in the public hearing. So that's what this item basically is.
So this was pretty much a rubber stamp item that they're saying these are what those rates are because that's what the county told us they are.
You received
Okay.
it.
So it doesn't really matter if we voted no. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
So motion by Councilman Simpson to approve. There's a second by Councilman Wilson. Is there any discussion?
Yes, is this right down here, 3.41?
Yes, sir, that's dealing.
Valuation of voter approval tax rate, $3.41,
Yes, sir.
okay.
That is not what we are proposing to raise the tax
No,
rate to, by the way.
no.
That's just the max, that's just
What I
the max.
wanted to clarify.
Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10B, consideration and possible action on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, approving the 2022 appraisal roll, providing for the incorporation of preamble, and providing a repealer clause, a severability clause, and an effective date.
Move to approve.
There's a motion to approve by Councilman Wilson, a second by Councilman Simpson. Is there any, do we need discussion on this? Probably not. All right. Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10C, consideration and possible action on a proposed tax rate for FY 2022 to 23 and set the date for the public hearing for said tax rate. This one I will turn over to the city manager to.
Sure. Well, just to start off with, is understands that what we want to do is kind of set with the way the legislature has developed the procedure is really what starts off with setting a proposed tax rate. That's kind of what's really going to kick us off here. So it's what are we going to propose? And what does propose mean? Propose means that you can always go down from that tax rate, but you cannot go above that tax rate. Once you set a proposed, you can only go either equal to or less than that tax rate. And I'm going to, in a second, just turn it over to Harrison, our CFO. First thing I wanted to bring up is that what we would ask for, so we'd have maximum flexibility during budget season. We have a lot of great priorities, great projects forthcoming. And so to have maximum flexibility and the ability for council to either keep it the same or go down would be to propose a 38, it's about 38.8 cents. He'll give you the exact number in a second. As of right now, we're sitting at a little above 40 cents. The 38.8 cent rate that is being proposed but not set at this time would allow us to go into budget workshop and be able to allow the council to say, okay, we like these things, we don't like those things, and then whittle down that tax rate to where y'all feel just right and get a good balance. So Harrison, if you'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, just to reiterate, Theo, that the proposed rate is 0.388139, which is almost 2 cents less than the current rate. And that is the total rate. And the two pieces of the proposed rate is the M&O, which funds general fund operations, and then the debt portion. And the debt portion is just a tad bit over 5 cents. So the M&O would be 33 cents. And that total amount makes it up. So.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
To approve.
Second.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Simpson, a second by Councilman Decker. Is there any discussion? Just to, Theo, we were talking about this some this week. So what would it be since, if we were to adopt this rate, since, was it 2 years ago, we would have cut the tax rate by 9 cents, is that correct?
Correct, yeah. So, whenever, in July of 21, when I came here, going into budget season, we were at 47 cents and some change. We adopted a 40-cent tax rate to go with a what I've considered to be a very good budget. I believe that now we're sitting in a great spot right here to build off of a good year we've had. We have some great projects. Another big part of it too is that having department heads that are working alongside Harrison, and we're building a pretty comprehensive and very strategically sound budget. So I think I think it's a good thing that we're moving in the direction of keeping the tax rates very competitive with our sister cities.
Because this would put us, because we kind of talked about this a little bit as well, just to interject for a second, that, I mean, we're kind of like low, mid or something like that, mid, low.
Yeah, we're in the lower middle range. Obviously, we are not at Jamaica Beach's 18
Just
cents.
18
We
cents,
did
yeah.
learn that. So we'll have to.
But they're kind of outliers along with the others.
By
yeah.
far. But no, to your point, I mean, the cities that we are actually, if you're talking about like sister cities and competitively speaking, especially when you're talking about economic and community development, when you're talking about cost of service and those type of things, we're in that low mid. We're not even midpoint. And actually at 38.8 cents, we should be actually dipping well below mid.
And I know that I know two of the, I don't want to get into the budget too much, but it does, I think, have to do with the tax rate. That one issue is we do not have, and I guess I've never had full-time EMS staff in town at all.
Yep.
And I know that's, I know for me, that's a large priority that it's going to be brought up. And I'd personally like to see that not phased in, but happen quickly, because that's kind of a travesty that we haven't had that. And also we recently dealt with the police contract to deal with a lot of severe compensation problems that the PD had. So I know that there's perhaps a good reason to not propose right off the, because last year I know we proposed the 40 cents, I think, we proposed and adopted. So I understand why you're moving forward, not quite as deep of a rate cut this year.
Sure. And also, I think it was a good faith proposal last year to the public that, hey, we feel like we can provide good service while also cutting the tax rate 7 cents, which was a true tax cut. It wasn't just a tax rate cut. It was actually the actual taxes paid as a whole came down. And actually that came out with the appraiser's report and notices on what the average household would pay to the city. So we were able to provide good service. At this point, especially when you're talking about public safety and first responders, those are not, those type of agenda items are not cheap. Those type of budget items are not cheap. And so if what we're trying to do is move toward more full-time staffing of EMS, it will be a budget item that would be costly, but also believe that is something that should be a major priority of the community is to try to beef up that EMS service to the best it can be.
And that'll be a conversation over the next month or so to do the budget workshops. But Council Wilson.
Yeah, we're proposing a 2-cent drop from last year, correct? Which is about a little less than $300,000 available money. With everything, I mean, I said it on negotiation of the police contract, so I know what we're looking at. So, okay, and we feel, I mean, y'all feel comfortable that, that's not going to be a problem.
And I'll turn this over to Harrison because he's the one that's really digging in the numbers. What I would say is that obviously, like I said, if you're trying to maximize the ability to be flexible, of course, if you were going to go higher, that's up to you guys. Y'all are the policy-making board to do so. And I'll maybe let Harrison talk about why 38.8 cents is kind of where we landed. We felt like it was a good middle ground of like saying, hey, we do need some revenues, but we also we are also trying to stair step it, not necessarily for EMS, but we have several departments, right? And so everyone has needs, and how do we find that middle ground? So I'll maybe let Harrison talk a little bit how he got to 38.8 cents as a possible proposal.
Yeah, basically with the truth and taxation calculations at the no new revenue rate, that basically will lock you in at last year's tax values or the probability of collection last year's to be the same. So really the only addition would be new items that came on the tax roll for tax year 22, which is our fiscal year 23. And that was about right near $100,000. So that would have been the only increase in true property taxes at the no new revenue rate. So I was kind of looking at it, and once again, when you approve the proposed rate, you can't go up after you approve. You can either keep it the same or go down. So about each penny on the tax rate is right near $141,000. I think I have it in the,
143.
yeah, 141,528. So I was thinking with about the 100,000 of new items coming on the tax rolls and the 3 cents, that's $450,000 to then look to see as we're putting the budget together and seeing what the requests are from the departments and then seeing how all that plays through. It gave a little bit more flexibility than just going with the no new revenue rate, and we would have had $100,000.
Right.
And that's divided mostly to the general fund, but part of that 100,000 would also go to the debt fund.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
No, other
Councilor
than.
Brantley.
Thank you. Harrison, thank you for taking the, excuse me.
Tax rate.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the time this afternoon to spend with me and go through some of this stuff. As I told you, I kind of fashioned myself around being a no new revenue guy, so I look forward to the budget season and really digging into these numbers and taking a look at what we got and what we're able to do with the eye on this being the worst case scenario and seeing where we end up. So thank you.
Any other comments? All right, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. The date. What will the date be?
The date of
The public hearing.
Yeah, the public hearing would be September 13th.
Okay. Just to state that. It's in the packet, but just to state it out loud. All right. All right. If there's no further discussion, we will take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10D, discussion and possible action to approve project business development and retention services within the city of Dickinson. Turn it over to Theo again.
Well, thank you. And I don't know if any of the board members or Cortland would like to speak on it, or if y'all would like just for me to handle it. Y'all just let me know if I'm fumbling the ball here. So
I'll let you get started.
By all means, thank you.
We won't let you fumble.
Thank you. We'll just want to say is that, so number one of the big things that cities do, especially in economic development, you have two major areas. One is the recruitment of business. So what you're talking about is going to the outside, working with site selectors, working with developers who are not necessarily knowledgeable of Dickinson and what it has to offer. And so I think we've talked a lot about that, recruitment, right? But there's this whole other side of economic development that's really important. And without it, you really, it can also feed into recruitment, especially if it's a really good one, and that is your business retention and expansion program. And what that really talks about is the economic gardening for the businesses that are already in the community. And some of it is, the retention portion is making sure that your current businesses stay in business. And part two is letting them know about the tools available and having your fingers on the pulse of businesses in the times when they are looking at expansion but don't really know what is available to them and how they could actually come to, say, an EDC or city to help expand their services. That's really what you really want to find, is finding those businesses that are kind of here and they're successful, but how can you get them to that next level of success? There are associations that do exist that can be very beneficial to business retention and expansion, BRNE for short. And one of those organizations can be the EDC. And so what you have here today is, and we'll turn it over to our council member, Brantley, in a second, just to say is that we really have a great opportunity working together on a business development, business retention and expansion program through the EDC that can really be helpful to businesses currently in Dickinson. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Well, yeah, I think, Theo, that's a great summary. I want to thank the EDC board for leading the effort and this push for business retention and expansion. I think kind of what we envision through BR&E is training for existing businesses, what the city has to offer, what the state has to offer, what the region has to offer. How do we effectively steward our business as a small business owner? If you want to expand, how do we do so within the city? I think that part of the BR&E function of the Economic Development Corporation should be to work closely with community development. So I think that there are a lot of avenues that this initiative can take to be very, very beneficial to our existing businesses. So I think that, and I want to commend Cortland and Landis both on the job they've done on business attraction. I think we've got some exciting things going on. A lot of times I think that they don't get the credit for it because there's things that they can't talk about for the protection of developers. But I know that there is a void there for our existing businesses in their efforts to be successful. So I thoroughly support this initiative.
All right, we do need a motion as well.
I motion to approve.
All right, there's a motion to approve by Councilman Brantley, second by Councilman Decker. Is there any discussion? Councilman Lynn? Yes, sir.
Will this also include some type of handbook for developers and new businesses coming to the city?
Well, I mean, so I think, and I'll probably leave this in maybe a little bit with the Cortland and Landis boat, but what I would say is that this would be an area where if you're talking about like how can businesses navigate through like community development for certain things, that could definitely be a portion of that. I mean, it could definitely be, I think what you're going to see out of this BR&E program is having that, basically the goal is to have a specialist who would then be educating businesses. That could be like one of the topics of here's a handbook, here is how that is. But I think that would be like one topic of like a year-long program and so forth. What you'd really be looking at is so you'd have like handbook on how to, and here is how a business can walk itself through community development based on different things. Another area could be, especially for our very small businesses, proper, like different types of accounting software and how pros and cons of each type and being able to work with small business. In that way, you're also looking at, the power of networking within an association of businesses and how that can be powerful as well. I would also say another topic of discussion would be, I would love on an annual basis to bring in somebody who's going to be talking about the changes in the tax code that specifically affect the small businesses, that, when that comes out. So to your point, yes, that could be one, but I would say what I'm talking about is a full curricula, right, if you will. Including things as to what you're discussing is like, hey, a small business, hey, if I need to expand my footprint on my property, how can I do that? Well, we can build that into that curricula.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Councilman Wilson? Oh, no, you're getting ready to vote. Okay.
Just turn the mic on.
Okay, anyone else? All right, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to, we have no item 11 or 12. We'll move on to item 13, adjournment. Motion to adjourn by Councilman Wilson, a second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 9:33 p.m.